on the internet to look at the packet from 2006, which I think had that information, but I noticed that none of the council packets are up on the website for 2006 or 7. So I just want to make a note of that. But I did notice that in 2005, in one of the packets in 2005, actually there was a memorandum dated January 5th, 2005, that said, actually asked for it to be disbanded, but it didn't actually say when the last meeting had been. So I know it had been before 2005, but do you know when the last meeting of this commission was?
Well, it was in 2005. Does it actually give the last meeting date in our packet? I didn't remember seeing that. So your research is correct. It was 2005, but I don't see that we have the actual date of the last meeting.
Right, yeah, the memorandum says there wasn't enough for a quorum anymore. January 5th, 2005 says there were only 3 members left and not enough for a quorum, so they weren't even meeting anymore. So I was thinking the last meeting must have been like in maybe 2004 or something, or?
Don't know.
Okay, I was just curious. And do we know what were the, at the end, what kind of issues were they handling?
My impression was not much. I mean, really. I mean, they'd gone from a kind of a human relations type of commission to welcome wagon, and weren't really doing much of that. And so I believe that part of the reason that people weren't really interested and were leaving and we weren't really getting much in the way of applications is the whole direction had really been lost. At that time, I don't know that there was either a lot of council and or staff support to really kind of try to get them going again. So,
was it also because there were some changes in state laws and stuff in the early 2000s?
I'm not aware of that, Diana.
Okay.
Anything? Yes, Kathy?
Well, I was part of that at that point. We had attempted to see if we could revive it, and basically my summary statement is it had devolved while the community was evolving. And so the wisest thing seemed to be to let it just cease to be and then reorganize. And as you know, this community has changed decidedly in the last 10 years, certainly, but the last 5 even more so. And we have a diversity of aging and a diversity of cultures, and so it just is more obvious now that we need to be doing this in a whole new frame.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? Anything else from you?
Not a thing.
Next Monday, we have 2 interviews to finish up the interviews for this commission, and then we'll be notifying everyone as quickly as we can afterwards. And the hope is to have the first meeting of the new commission in January.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. So, council, the last interview for tonight is John Brandt. Good evening, Mr. Brandt.
Mr. Mayor, Council.
How are you this evening?
Good, thank you.
I want to thank you for putting in an application for this commission and also for spending some time with us this early evening for this interview.
Delighted to be here.
The format that we're using is we have 5 formal questions that we're asking of each applicant. And the 4 council members have a question. Mr. Antonin is also asking a question. Councilmember Nephew has decided, since he has a close relative who's an applicant, that he would sit out this round of interviews and not taint the pool, so to speak. So we'll just get right into it and let Mr. Antonin ask his first question.
Thank you. Please explain any background and or experience that you may have had in any of the following areas: public housing, civil rights, veterans issues, education, employment, or social work?
Okay, I can hit on a few of those. I have a master's degree in social work and have been a social worker for 30 years, working in social services with children and families in Minnesota. I've been 20 years running Maple Tree Group Home for adolescent guys. At Maple Tree, we have 12 to 14 employees, and that has resulted in some familiarity with employment laws. I've also had a two-track career. I've been involved in real estate as a licensed real estate agent at one time, as a general contractor, which I am still, and also own and manage several rental properties. And all of that has given me a broad exposure to employment law and also public housing laws.
Thank you.
We have a microphone that's not working.
Okay.
Hi. My question is somewhat related, but if you could give an example or this relates to this, what training or life experience do you have that would be beneficial if you are appointed to serve on the Human Rights Commission?
Well, the most obvious one, I guess, is my career. My bachelor's degree, undergraduate degree, is from St. Cloud State University in psychology. My master's degree in social work from University of Wisconsin-Madison. I've been licensed as a social worker for as long as they have had licensure for social workers in Minnesota, going back to the mid-1980s. I think the professional experience that I've had as a social worker and continuing education requirements have probably been made a significant contribution to my what I guess would consider specialized training. The most significant life experience is, I guess I would have to say, is pretty easy. It was coming to the gradual realization as a teenager that I was a gay kid and coming out in college at a time that it was against the law and gay people were considered mentally ill. So that has given me a vantage point over the last 40 years to observe civil rights violations, human rights violations, and I think in part has driven my passion in helping to further education for people working with gay and lesbian youth. About a third of gay and lesbian youth have seriously considered committing suicide. I've worked pretty passionately over many years to try to reduce bullying and hazing in schools. And I think another sort of interesting life experience I had was I heard Martin Luther King speak back in 1964 when he was at the University of Minnesota. And I was quite inspired by somebody who was already a legend, a Nobel Prize winner at the time. 4 years later, after his assassination, I participated in civil rights marches down Summit Avenue in St. Paul, and that was all in high school. And I can't remember a time since then that I haven't been concerned about civil rights and human rights. Probably the biggest professional challenge that I've had is working for the last 20 or almost 25 years now with sex offenders. It's a population that is hard to be an advocate for because of the public perception. But I've spent the last 20 or 25 years helping young men to repair their lives, repair their families, get their lives back, and to promote education among my colleagues, and to help get good information back out to the public in hopes that good science and good information will help calm public fear and will help promote good public policy.
Thank you. Up to you now, Marv.
Oh, yeah. My mic's working too. What do you think would be the major challenges in reestablishing the Human Rights Commission in Maplewood?
I think probably establishing the scope and defining the commission, helping to separate the role of the commission here in Maplewood from other jurisdictions, for example, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, and clarifying and defining what the role will be in the city of Maplewood. I think we can do that in part by exploring human rights commissions in other cities and local governments, and that may help to give us some direction. I understand that the council has not provided a clear mandate for what the commission is supposed to do, and that the commission will, to some degree, be given the responsibility of defining the direction and purpose of the commission. And I think that could be a challenging process. I hope that with the quality of commissioners that I've seen, the applicants that are in the packet, that it's going to be a talented pool of people, and I would look forward to being part of that group.
As a commissioner, you could be involved in facilitating issues that may arise between individuals and/or businesses in the community regarding housing, employment, public accommodations, and/or services. What experiences and skills qualify you to perform this task?
Well, I guess I just have to go back to my career. More than 30 years in social services. And I think social services would approach these kinds of issues from two directions. One from a perspective of advocacy, and another from a perspective of mediation. And I think it's important to know when to use which. There are clearly some egregious human rights violations or civil rights violations in which advocacy and bringing the resources of the community to help resolve those kinds of situations would be an important role of the Human Rights Commission. I could also envision that there are many situations where there are reasonable people seeing difficult, complicated issues from reasonable perspectives, and that mediation becomes necessary in resolving those.
Thank you.
Mine might be last, but it still has to do with your life experience. Just asking you to broaden it out a little bit. Based on your life experience and your understanding of the mission of this commission, if you had the opportunity to set one goal or major program for the Human Rights Commission, what would it be? You only get one wish.
Well, I think it's promoting education. Human rights and civil rights are not accomplished by government edict. It's accomplished by winning over the hearts and minds of people. And we have to get out and we have to do a lot more education if that's going to happen. That can't happen. Government can't do that by itself, but I don't think we can accomplish it without government leadership. And I think that's where the Human Rights Commission can provide some leadership and some direction. I think Maplewood is either going to be a city that's seen as inclusive or exclusive. And if we think of things in those terms, I think it's clear that we want to be seen as a city that's seen as inclusive.
Thank you.
That's the end of our formal questions. Any kind of follow-ups the council has on anything? Are there questions that you have of us?
Well, the one that's probably most obvious, and that's I'm very interested in how the City Council envisions the role, scope of the Human Rights Commission.
Let's see, I'm trying